G'day guys, welcome back to the True Footy YouTube channel. It's Jesse here, checking in with you from self-isolation. And if you're familiar with this channel in the last couple of weeks and been keeping up on social media with me, that's if you follow me. I have been on holiday in Thailand and Vietnam for 2 weeks, and of course while we were away, the government announced that there's going to be a compulsory isolation for 2 weeks on everyone who gets back. So long story short, I'm here in my house with my partner. And for the next 2 weeks, I have no work, so I'm going to be pushing out some content. Of course, that is undercut a little bit by the fact that the football season has, of course, been suspended. As everyone knows, it's old news now. I'm recording this on Monday afternoon, and everyone, I think that news is kind of saturated. But I just wanted to check in with you guys post-holiday. It's been a while since I made a video. Of course, made 5 videos to drop while I was away. And it was funny, it was called kind of a mad scramble. I was consistently going back and considering whether I was going to even release them, which would have been a shame not to, because I put a lot of effort into them. But it was stuff like a ladder prediction, my round 1 predictions, my season promo vid. Through varying points of the trip, I kept thinking, is there any point releasing this? Is there going to be a season? But they all got out, and you know, we got round 1 in, which is good. But of course, the AFL has decided to suspend the season. Now, it's been a crazy 2 weeks since I went on holiday. Rather, you know, when I left, we thought our chances were pretty good of getting a holiday unimpeded, and to be honest, we got very lucky. We had 1 cancelled flight. Other than that, you know, I came back pretty much the day before Vietnam closed their borders, and Thailand's, I think, not far behind. So, very lucky there. But you know, it's crazy to think that when I left, there was no talk of playing in front of empty stadiums. There was no talk about postponing the season. I think the Premier League and NBA were still going ahead at the time. So the idea that we could be where we are now at the time, that seemed absolutely ludicrous. But nonetheless, you know, as it happened, the Premier League went, the NBA went, then the AFL were under a serious amount of pressure to make a similar sort of decision. We decided on a 17-game season with shorter quarters. And then if a player got COVID-19, the league would down tools for 30 days, and we would suspend the season temporarily. That, to me, was always going to be a very short-term thing. It was unrealistic to me that we were going to go more than about a week before a player got coronavirus, in my opinion, based on, you know, looking at other countries in particular. The UK, for where their numbers are at, you know, they've got several players and managers with coronavirus. So, yeah, overall it was pretty unrealistic. I think that we were all going to get more than... I never expected a round 2. So, but I am quite grateful, I guess, the fact that we got round 1 in, and I'm sure we all are a little bit, to some extent, even though it was a weird round 1 with no crowds. And of course, the AFL also decided not to progress with the final 3 games of AFLW, which I found curious. You know, I'm a Liverpool fan, so in the Premier League, the talk of cancelling the season would have broken my heart. And for Fremantle fans, I know it's, you know, AFLW, which is a younger competition, so the fans aren't as passionate as in the Premier League, but there is some sort of... It is a bit meme-worthy for Fremantle to have been robbed of their flag, because I think most people are in agreement they were pretty much going to win it. I think they won their first final 80-10. And I understand you can't award a premiership based on that. But nonetheless, I think the question could be asked why the AFL has decided that 3 games left to play in the AFLW is too many, and they're not willing to suspend it. I've heard somewhere that it might be to do with the fact that contracts expire in April for AFLW players. I'm not sure if that's true, but I can understand why that kind of sucks. But nonetheless, in the AFLM, to use that term, we have 17 games to play in a 40-week period, and while I have absolutely no basis for saying this, I feel like that's quite doable. I've got no expertise. This is unprecedented, to use a term that has really been overused generally. But I mean, there's so many unknowns in this. Obviously, when do we go back? It feels like 10 weeks from now is ambitious. I can't see... I know this talk of Australia going into lockdown and the states closing their borders and all that, but within 10 weeks, I can't imagine enough will have happened to turn the tide. You know, even if things go perfectly for the next 10 weeks, it's hard to envisage the government saying, you know what, actually, I think we will open everything back up and we'll play football. So I think 10 weeks probably going to be more like a few months. Maybe even if it's as far as August. But I think the AFL are leaving the door open to play up until December if they have to, which as a football fan, I selfishly want that. I think that would be cool. It's interesting the issues that it presents. Is going to be, for a start, I think the AFL clubs are allowing interstate players to return home to their families. Maybe it's just younger players, but I think generally that is what's happening, which is good for them, especially in a time of crisis. You should be with your family, especially when borders are going to be closing and stuff like that. But then there's, in terms of a football context, and I'm trying to keep this football related, there's the issue of what condition will players be in when it's time to play football again, because they're not training. There's going to be enforcing, social distancing and lockdown, whatever exactly that entails. So, there's going to be all these kind of issues that we've never really dealt with before. But look, we've got a long time to work it out, and I'm hoping that we still get a season in. The other interesting thing for me is I kind of believe that this is probably going to be a rare opportunity for us to have the fairest AFL season should we get the full 17 rounds in. So 17 rounds is ideal because everyone plays each other once. And, the AFL is pretty weird with their fixturing. 22 rounds, or 22 games rather. It's a little bit bizarre. It's very arbitrary, those number of games. And it means we have an unfair fixture every year. There's absolutely no way around it. So at least this year, everyone plays each other once. And the fact that there's no crowds, at least for round one, I think that kind of mitigates the home away advantage. And the other thing is, though, that it might enforce a non-MCG grand final, because, of course, if you're playing games in the summer, the MCG is going to be highly sought after. I think we've got a Cricket World Cup this year, don't we? The 2020 World Cup. Off the top of my head, I don't know when that is. But all I want to say on the non-MCG grand final is don't play it at Marvel. That would be shit. It'd be interesting to see the approach on that. Would we play it at a neutral ground? You have Adelaide Oval and Optus Stadium, because if the Eagles are in the grand final, and they finish second, it's probably not fair to have them host the grand final. It'll be interesting to see how they play that, because I think having it Marvel for the sake of just having it at Marvel, even if it's like a GWS West Coast grand final, I think that would be a bad result. They should play that at like Adelaide Oval or something. Did the AFL make the right decision playing with round one? I don't think anyone has the answer to this, because yes, health is paramount, but I think the criticism I've heard is that the AFL's money hungry, and I think that is quite ridiculous. People are overlooking the fact that Gil McLachlan's role is to preserve the AFL through this crisis. He's meant to get us through it. And there's a huge chance that not every club is going to survive this COVID-19 thing. I think while the health in terms of clubs financially, it's important. Obviously, it's not to the extent that it's at the expense of health and safety. But Gil's role is to balance these two things, and I think I would just say I'm not sure if he made the right decision, but I can sympathise with the delicate position he's in. I think it was undoubtedly he was waiting for a decision to be made for him. I think he was waiting for the government to come out and say that you can't go ahead with the AFL, it's against the law. But if he pulled the pin first, that's where I think the AFL might have been contractually liable to broadcasters, and then do they have to still pay the players even though they're not playing football that year? That's tricky, and that had the potential to really financially gut the league. So I guess now his obligations are frustrated, to use a contract law term. It means the AFL can't fulfill their obligations to broadcasters by playing games, because interstate travel is now blocked, because this would be deemed non-essential. But I guess all I would say on this issue is I think it's a very Australian attitude to just heap shit on whoever's making decisions and who's in charge. And look, maybe they're right, but for me, I just think this would have been a horrible position to be in as the chief decision maker in all this. It'd be interesting to see what people are doing with their memberships, because I know that a lot of people are not asking for their memberships back. Now, I'm not going to give anyone advice on this issue. Personally, I don't think I will be asking for mine back per se. That's a West Coast membership, for those who don't know. My logic for that is, I don't think the Eagles are in financial stress. I think they're the most profitable club in the league, but I don't really want anything to jeopardize the club. And I think there's 3 clubs. I think they said was it North Melbourne, the Western Bulldogs, and St Kilda. I think so. Or at least those are the 3 Victorian clubs that are in strife if they have to refund memberships and stuff like that. So it's an interesting issue there, I guess, for members. I mean, you've got to put your family first. If you need your money back, then you got to do that. But I guess what I would find preferable, and I would hope clubs do this maybe, is to ask or give the option to keep the membership payment in exchange for, I don't know, some sort of future benefit. So maybe if you don't ask for your membership back now, you get $100 off for the next 5 years, or however much it costs. So I think that all that stuff is going to unfold pretty shortly, or it could take ages, who knows. As for the actual coronavirus, guys, I'm not a medical expert, so I'm not going to sit here and tell you all what to do, but I would just urge everyone just to be smart about this, take precautions. There's a good chance, I know a lot of you who follow this channel are young, under 35, there's a good chance you'll probably be fine if you catch it, but don't forget, you might always pass it on to someone who will not be fine, and that is a very serious issue. It's a real threat to our healthcare system in terms of if everyone gets crook at the same time. 20% of people need hospitalization. 20% of thousands of people is going to cripple our healthcare system. So, long story short, let's take precautions and flatten the curve, guys. Before I finish up this video, I just want to touch base with you on where the channel is at now. This channel is my one big passion, so I am not going to be stopping making content. I have a few ideas for things to do. I've hinted a bit lately I'm going to be doing a podcast with Caden McDonald, so hopefully we tee that up sometime soon. And I want to get more guests on, particularly in the YouTube creator space. It's got to be over Skype, obviously, for social distancing reasons, and also the fact that I live in Perth and not everyone lives in Perth. I'm also tinkering with the idea of doing an AFL 2019 rewind, so a little mini doco on last year's season, just to get us through the next 10 weeks plus. I haven't decided how long that's going to be, but I think I might put a bit of time into that and hopefully come up with something cool. I'm going to probably be looking at my club-by-club analysis that I did back in the day, back in 2018. Haven't touched that for a while, but I might get back into it. Might be doing redrafts, and I kind of want to do a video on Damien Hardwick as well, because I actually think he's probably got one of the best stories of any coach in the league. Let me know, guys. I'm open to your ideas for content. I hope you guys stick around with me, because I am not going anywhere. So thanks for watching the video. If you're new to the channel, make sure you hit subscribe, and I will see you again somewhere on YouTube. Cheers.